I sat alone in a corner booth at the diner, poking at scrambled eggs that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. My phone lit up with another notification from the family group chat. Mom had posted a selfie from the airport. Her and Dad flanking Brandon, all three of them grinning like they had won the lottery. The caption read, "Paris bound, Brandon's promotion celebration." The next message came from Dad himself. "We're taking your brother to Europe. Celebrate on your own. Brandon's promotion is more important." I stared at those words until they blurred. Today was my graduation day from Stanford. I had a worn laptop bag sitting on the seat beside me, and inside that bag were files and documents that represented a company worth $15 billion. Not a single person in my family knew what I had built while they threw parties for Brandon's mediocre achievements. But today, everything was going to change. I paid for breakfast and walked towards Stanford's campus, watching other graduates stream past me with their families in tow. Parents snapping photos, siblings carrying bouquets, grandparents dabbing at proud tears. I kept my head down and let the memories wash over me. 5 years ago, when I was 22 years old, I got my acceptance letter to Stanford for computer science. I remember running downstairs to tell my parents, waving the letter like a flag. Dad glanced up from his newspaper and said, "That's nice, son. Good for you." Mom gave me a distracted hug and went back to cooking dinner. That same week, Brandon landed an entry-level marketing position at some regional company nobody had ever heard of. My parents threw a party for 50 people. They rented a banquet hall. They hired a caterer. Uncle Harold gave a toast about how proud he was of Brandon's accomplishments. I asked Dad for help with tuition a month later. We were sitting in his home office, and I had printed out the financial aid forms, highlighted the parts where it asked for parental contribution. Dad sighed and rubbed his temples. "Budget's tight right now, Collins. You're a smart kid. Take out loans. You'll figure it out." 2 months after that conversation, they bought Brandon a brand new BMW for his 26th birthday. Midnight blue, with leather seats. Brandon drove it over to show me, honking the horn in the driveway. "You jealous, little brother?" he asked, grinning. I told him congratulations and went back to my room. When I was 23, I worked 3 part-time jobs while taking a full course load. I tutored freshmen in programming, delivered food on weekends, and did data entry for a marketing firm at night. I came home for Thanksgiving break that year, exhausted and running on 4 hours of sleep. I walked into the house carrying a duffel bag and a cheap bottle of wine I had bought for Mom. Nobody looked up when I entered. Brandon was in the middle of telling some story about his girlfriend Amanda, and everyone was hanging on his every word. We sat down to dinner, and the conversation never left Brandon. His new apartment, his raise, his plans to propose to Amanda. I tried to mention that I had made the dean's list, but Dad interrupted me to ask Brandon about his company's quarterly earnings. Mom forgot my 24th birthday entirely. 3 weeks later, she sent me a text. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Happy belated birthday. Here's a little something." She sent a $50 Amazon gift card. Brandon's birthday that same year came with a surprise party, an expensive watch, and a weekend trip to Las Vegas that the whole family attended. I was not invited because I had finals. I started coding late at night in my dorm room when I was 24. My roommate Derek had graduated and moved out, so I had the space to myself. I would sit at my desk until 3 or 4 in the morning, writing lines of code, testing algorithms, building something that felt important. I created an early prototype of an artificial intelligence platform that could analyze data patterns in ways that existing software could not touch. I called Dad one evening, so excited I could barely get the words out. "Dad, I think I've built something revolutionary. It's an AI-powered analytics tool that could change how companies process information." There was a pause on the line. "That's nice, Collins, but I've got to tell you about Brandon. He just got promoted to junior account manager. Can you believe it? 27 years old and already climbing the corporate ladder. We're so proud of him." I said something polite and hung up. Christmas dinner when I was 25 changed everything. The whole extended family gathered at my parents' house. Uncle Harold, Aunt Susan, 3 cousins I barely knew. We sat around the table, and Uncle Harold asked me, "So Collins, how's school going?" I opened my mouth to answer, and Dad cut me off. "Collins is still figuring things out. Brandon here, is the real success story. For the next 20 minutes, Dad talked about Brandon's latest accomplishments, his client wins, his networking skills, his bright future. I excused myself halfway through and went upstairs to my childhood bedroom. Except it was not my bedroom anymore. They had converted it into Brandon's home gym. There was a weight bench where my bed used to be. I sat on the floor next to the exercise equipment and made a decision. I would build my empire in silence. I would prove my worth through actions, not words. I would become so successful that they could not ignore me. I walked across the Stanford campus now, the memories fading as I approached the ceremony venue. Other students were gathering outside the main hall, adjusting their caps and gowns, taking group photos. I checked my phone one more time. 0 messages from my family. They were somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean by now, toasting Brandon's mediocre promotion with champagne. I passed a group of graduates talking excitedly about their job offers. One girl had landed a position at Google. A guy next to her was headed to Facebook. They were all celebrating starting salaries of $120,000, signing bonuses of $25,000. I stayed quiet. My net worth exceeded all of their lifetime earnings combined, and not one person knew it. I reached the holding area where graduates were supposed to gather before the ceremony. I found my spot in the alphabetical lineup and adjusted my cap. A woman in a Stanford administrative uniform approached me with a clipboard. "Collins Hartford?" she asked. I nodded. "The dean would like to speak with you before the ceremony. Could you come with me, please?" "It's about the announcement." My heart started pounding. I followed her through a side door and down a hallway to a private office. I never submitted any information about my company. How did they find out? My palms were sweating. Someone had discovered my secret, and I had no idea what was about to happen. Dean Thomas Hartford stood behind his desk, a distinguished man in his early 60s, with silver hair and reading glasses perched on his nose. He smiled warmly when I entered. "Collins, thank you for coming. Please, sit down." I took a seat in the leather chair across from him, my graduation gown rustling. The dean folded his hands on his desk. "I received some interesting information from our alumni relations department. They conduct routine background checks on graduating students, you see, for potential major donors." He paused. "They discovered that you are the founder and majority shareholder of Nextstream Analytics, valued at $15 billion in your most recent private funding round." I felt the air leave my lungs. "How did you?" I started to say, but he held up a hand. "I've confirmed everything with SEC filings. Your company closed a Series D funding round last month. $1.2 billion in new capital. 37% ownership stake retained by you personally. Collins, this is extraordinary." He leaned forward. "I want to announce this during the ceremony. Feature you as an example of Stanford innovation and entrepreneurial spirit. Dean Hartford, with all due respect, my family doesn't know about this. Nobody knows. I kept this private for a reason." He nodded sympathetically. "I understand your hesitation. But Collins, several venture capital firms and media outlets are already asking questions. Someone always finds out about these things. It's better to control the narrative yourself. Plus, this is the kind of achievement that inspires other students." The dean stood up. "I'm going to announce it. You deserve recognition for what you've built." I realized I had no choice. The information was already out there, circulating through investor networks and tech journalism circles. If I tried to keep it quiet now, it would only make things worse. I agreed, my voice barely above a whisper. The dean smiled and clapped me on the shoulder. "Congratulations, Collins. You should be very proud." 20 minutes later, I sat in the alphabetical order among my fellow graduates. The ceremony hall held 5,000 people. I scanned the massive crowd, searching for my family even though I knew they were not there. They were in Paris, celebrating Brandon. The dean gave his opening remarks, discussing the achievements of the graduating class, the opportunities that lay ahead. Then he paused, and his tone shifted. "But today, I want to highlight one particular graduate who exemplifies innovation, determination, and the entrepreneurial spirit that Stanford seeks to cultivate." My stomach dropped. He continued, "Collins Hartford joined us 5 years ago as a computer science student. While pursuing his degree, working multiple part-time jobs to support himself. Collins was building something extraordinary in his dorm room. The crowd grew quiet, attentive. Collins created Nextstream Analytics, a revolutionary artificial intelligence platform that analyzes data patterns in ways that no existing software can match. He built this company from nothing. 40 employees. Major contracts with Fortune 500 companies. In his most recent funding round last month, Nextstream Analytics was valued at $15 billion. At 27 years old, Collins is among the youngest self-made billionaires in America. The crowd erupted. 5,000 people stood and applauded. Cameras flashed from every direction. I stood up awkwardly, my face burning red, and raised my hand in a small wave. The noise was overwhelming. Students around me were staring, some with their mouths open. The applause continued for what felt like an hour, but was probably only 2 minutes. I sat down as quickly as I could, my heart hammering against my ribs. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur. When it finally ended, I was immediately surrounded. Reporters shoving microphones in my face. Students wanting photos. Faculty members congratulating me. I pushed through the crowd, mumbling thank yous, trying to reach the exit. My phone was vibrating nonstop in my pocket. I finally broke free and found a quiet spot behind one of the campus buildings. I pulled out my phone and saw the notifications. 17 missed calls from Dad. 23 text messages from Mom. 9 from Brandon. Multiple messages from extended family members I had not spoken to in years. Cousins, aunts, uncles, people I did not even know I was related to. Dad's most recent text glowed on my screen. Call me now. Why didn't you tell us? I took a deep breath and called him back. He answered on the first ring. Collins, what the hell is going on? We're sitting in a cafe in Paris, and my phone is exploding with messages about you being a billionaire? How could you not tell us? I could hear the confusion and anger in his voice, but also something else. Hurt. We're your family. I kept my voice calm and cold. You were too busy celebrating Brandon's promotion to notice what I was doing. There was silence on the other end. That's not fair, Collins. We've always supported you. I laughed, a harsh sound. You forgot my last 3 birthdays. You're currently in Paris for Brandon's European vacation, while I graduated alone an hour ago. Dad stammered, trying to find words. This is different. This is. Collins, we need to talk about this. This is family money. Your mother and I raised you, invested in you, gave you everything you needed to. I cut him off. You invested nothing in me. I paid my own tuition through student loans and 3 jobs. You gave Brandon a BMW and a trip to Vegas. You gave me an Amazon gift card 3 weeks after you forgot my birthday. Goodbye, Dad. I hung up before he could respond. I started walking toward the parking lot, still processing everything that had just happened. My entire world had shifted in the span of an hour. The secret I had kept for 3 years was now public knowledge. I reached my car and was about to unlock it when I heard a voice behind me. Collins. I turned around and saw Amanda standing by the curb. Brandon's girlfriend of 4 years. The woman I had dated first, before Brandon took her from me. She was wearing a blue dress, and her expression was strange, nervous, guilty. We need to talk, she said. There's something you don't know about your brother and me. My heart sank. Another problem, emerging just when I thought things could not get more complicated. Amanda and I walked to a coffee shop near campus, neither of us speaking. She kept glancing at me sideways, wringing her hands. We sat down at a table in the back corner, away from other customers. I waited for her to start talking. Collins, she began, her voice shaking slightly. I've been with Brandon for 4 years, but I knew you first. I nodded slowly, not sure where this was going. She took a breath. 5 years ago, when you and I were both at Stanford, we dated. For 3 months. I remember. It was a good 3 months. She looked down at her hands. We had a real connection, something genuine. Then you introduced me to your family at Thanksgiving. The memory came back sharp and clear. I had been so proud to bring Amanda home. I thought my parents would finally see me as more than the forgettable younger son. We arrived at the house, and Brandon was already there, fresh from his new job, wearing an expensive suit. He spotted Amanda within 5 minutes, and his entire demeanor changed. He spent the whole evening following her around, complimenting her, asking her questions, making jokes that got her laughing. I pulled him aside that night. "Brandon, back off. She's my girlfriend." He grinned at me. "Girls like winners, little brother. You're a broke college kid living in a dorm. I have a career, money, a future. Watch and learn." Within 2 weeks, Brandon had convinced Amanda to leave me and date him instead. He took her to expensive restaurants I could not afford, bought her jewelry, took her on weekend trips. My parents loved it. They called Amanda and Brandon the perfect couple. They asked when the wedding would be. Meanwhile, I ate ramen in my dorm room and tried to pretend my heart was not broken. Amanda was still talking. "I made a terrible mistake. Brandon is shallow. He's selfish. He treats me like I'm an accessory, something to show off to his colleagues and his parents." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "I saw your announcement today at graduation. I realized what I lost. You were always the better man, Collins. I was just too blind to see it." She reached across the table like she was going to take my hand. "Brandon doesn't know I'm here. I'm leaving him. I want another chance with you." I pulled my hand back and stared at her. "Let me get this straight. You chose Brandon when I had nothing. Now that I have $15 billion, you suddenly realize I was the better man?" She started crying. "It's not about the money, Collins. I've grown. I've learned from my mistakes. I see things clearly now." I stood up from the table. "You and Brandon deserve each other. You both chose what looked successful over what was real. Goodbye, Amanda." I walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. My phone was still exploding with notifications as I drove to my apartment. Messages from my mother, one after another. "Collins, please call me. Your father is very upset. We need to talk about this as a family. Collins, why didn't you trust us enough to tell us?" Followed by messages from extended family I had not heard from in years. "Uncle Harold, so proud of you. Always knew you'd be successful. I have a business proposal I'd love to discuss." Cousin Rachel, "Hey, Collins, long time no talk. Would love to catch up. Could really use some advice on an investment opportunity." Aunt Susan, "Your mother is beside herself. How could you keep this from us?" Family shares everything. I reached my apartment building, a small complex near campus with cheap rent and thin walls. I had been living here for 3 years, even after my company started making real money. I never saw the point in upgrading. Money was for reinvesting in the business, not for showing off. I climbed the stairs to my studio apartment on the 3rd floor and unlocked the door. The place was tiny. A bed in one corner, a small kitchen, a desk with 2 monitors. Nothing fancy. Nothing that screamed billionaire. I ordered Chinese takeout and sat on my bed scrolling through notifications while I waited for the food to arrive. My company email inbox had 200 new messages. Multiple acquisition offers from tech giants. Google wanted to meet. Apple wanted to talk. Amazon was interested in the technology. Interview requests from the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, TechCrunch, Bloomberg. But mixed in with the opportunities were threats. 3 different law firms claiming I had used university resources to build my company. Potential lawsuits. People crawling out of the woodwork trying to get a piece of what I had built. The doorbell rang. I got up to answer it, expecting the delivery driver with my food. Instead, Brandon stood there. He had come back early from Paris. My parents must have told him to catch the first flight home. His face was a mixture of shock, envy, and barely controlled anger. "So, you're a billionaire now?" he said, pushing past me into the apartment without being invited. "And you didn't think to help your own brother?" I closed the door. "Help you? Like you helped me with Amanda? Like you helped me when Dad forgot my birthday 3 times? Brandon looked around my small apartment with confusion on his face. "If you're so rich, why do you live like this?" "Because I'm not like you," I said quietly. "Money doesn't define me." He exploded. "You always thought you were better than me. Smarter, more talented. But I had everything. The parents' love, the girlfriend, the attention." His face was red now. "I had the life you wanted." I stayed calm. "And I had nothing but time to build something real. While you were busy being the favorite son, I was in my dorm room writing code that would change my entire life." Brandon's expression shifted from anger to something colder, more calculated. You know Dad took out business loans using the family house as collateral for his construction company, right? I felt my stomach tighten. Company's failing. Bank is threatening foreclosure. He was going to ask you for money, but now I'm wondering, what if I beat him to it? He stepped closer. I've been doing research on your company, little brother. I know your business partner, Marcus, owns 20%. I know he's shopping around for buyers. What if I convinced him to sell his stake to your competitors? I still have connections from my marketing days. You might be the majority shareholder, but I can make your life very complicated. I stared at him, realization dawning. Solving one problem had created a much worse problem. My family had discovered my success, and now they were going to try to exploit it, manipulate it, tear it apart. Brandon smiled, seeing the understanding on my face. Think about it, Collins. Family can help you, or family can destroy you. Your choice. He walked out, leaving my apartment door hanging open. The next morning, I woke up to pounding on my door. I checked my phone. 7 in the morning. The knocking continued, aggressive and insistent. I opened the door and found both my parents standing there. Dad looked like he had not slept. Mom's eyes were red from crying. We need to talk, Dad said, pushing into the apartment. Now. They sat on my small couch while I made coffee, my hands shaking slightly. Dad started talking before I could even bring the mugs over. Collins, my construction company is drowning in debt. $800,000 owed to the bank. He rubbed his face with both hands. I used the family house as collateral for a business loan 3 years ago. The bank is going to foreclose in 60 days. We'll lose everything. Mom started crying again. We need your help. Your family. We're your parents. I set the coffee mugs down on the small table. Now I'm family? Yesterday I graduated alone while you celebrated Brandon in Paris. Dad's face turned red. Don't be dramatic. We made a mistake with the timing. But we're still your parents. We raised you, fed you, clothed you, gave you a home. You owe us. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through old photos. Here's Brandon's 25th birthday party. 100 guests, catered food, live band. Here's my 25th birthday. Nothing. You forgot it existed. Dad started to interrupt, but I kept going. Here's the BMW you bought Brandon. $28,000. Here's the tuition bill you told me to handle myself with loans. $60,000 per year. Mom sobbed. We made mistakes, but we're still your parents. We gave you everything. I showed them my bank statements from college, all my tuition paid through personal student loans, income from 3 part-time jobs. Every dollar I ever spent, I earned myself. You gave me nothing except reasons to succeed without you. Dad stood up, his face furious. You, ungrateful. After everything we sacrificed. What sacrifices? I stood too, matching his energy. You sacrificed nothing for me. You sacrificed everything for Brandon. I was the afterthought, the forgettable one. The son you could ignore because he did not demand constant attention. They left 20 minutes later, angry and empty-handed. I watched them get into their car from my window. Dad was yelling, gesturing wildly. Mom was crying into her hands. I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Standing up to them felt good, but it also felt like burning a bridge I might someday want to cross again. The next day, I drove to my company office. Nextstream Analytics operated out of a co-working space downtown. 40 employees spread across an open floor plan. Software engineers, data scientists, salespeople, customer support. Everyone looked up when I walked in. Some started clapping. Others came over to congratulate me. The graduation announcement had made national news. I smiled and thanked them, but I needed to find Marcus. Marcus Thompson was my business partner and chief technology officer. I met him 4 years ago at a hackathon. We started coding together, building the early prototypes of Nextstream in coffee shops and libraries. When the company started making real money, I gave Marcus a 20% equity stake. He deserved it. He was brilliant, loyal, and hardworking. But when I found him in his office, he looked nervous. We need to talk, he said, closing the door behind us. I've been approached by 3 different parties in the last 24 hours. TechCorp was one of them. They're a major competitor, a billion-dollar company with offices in 12 countries. They're offering to buy my 20% stake for $3 billion. My chest tightened. Marcus continued. I'm not selling. We built this together. But there's pressure. My wife thinks we should cash out. She's scared of volatility, of risking everything. She wants security for our kids. I need you to trust me, I said. We're building something bigger than a quick payout. TechCorp wants to buy your stake because they're scared of us. We're disrupting their entire business model. If we hold strong, we dominate the market in 2 years. Marcus nodded, but the uncertainty was still there in his eyes. I trust you, Collins. I'm with you. But the pressure is real. That afternoon, a business journalist published a hit piece in a major publication. The headline read, Stanford billionaire built empire using university resources without permission. The article cited anonymous sources, claiming I had used Stanford's computing clusters, laboratory equipment, and intellectual property without authorization. It was completely false. I built everything independently, on my personal laptop, in my apartment. But the damage was done. Within hours, Stanford released a statement saying they were investigating the claims. The private shares of my company dropped 8% in value. Investors started getting nervous, sending urgent emails asking for clarification. The next day, Brandon made his move. He met secretly with Marcus. I only found out about it later, when Marcus told me himself. Brandon had posed as a concerned family member, showing up at Marcus's house unannounced. Marcus, I'm worried about my brother. He's always been unstable. This sudden success, it's changing him. He cut off his entire family. He's making emotional decisions. You should protect your investment. Think about your family. Marcus did not sell his shares, but Brandon had succeeded in planting seeds of doubt. That evening, Amanda appeared at my apartment again. I almost did not answer the door. Collins, please. I need to talk to you. It's important. I let her in against my better judgment. Brandon told me he's going to destroy you, she blurted out. He's networking with your competitors, feeding them information about your company, trying to create chaos. I stared at her. Why are you telling me this? She looked genuinely distressed. Because I feel guilty. I made a terrible choice 4 years ago. I should have chosen you. Brandon is vindictive and petty. He's jealous of you. Always has been. I crossed my arms. I don't trust you, Amanda. You chose money once. How do I know this isn't another manipulation? She started crying. I'm trying to help you. I care about you. I asked her to leave. Whatever game she was playing, I wanted no part of it. At 2 a.m, drunk and desperate pounding on my door, woke me up. I opened it, and Dad stumbled inside, reeking of whiskey. You have to help us, he slurred. The house. Your mother's house. We'll lose everything. I helped him to the couch. You made poor business decisions. That's not my responsibility. He looked up at me with bloodshot eyes. I gave you life. You owe me. I kept my voice steady. You gave me neglect and emotional abandonment. I owe you nothing. He broke down then, crying like a child. I know I failed you. I see it now. I was so focused on Brandon because he needed more help. You were always so independent, so smart, so capable. I thought you'd be fine without me. That's not parenting, I said. That's laziness. He sobbed harder. Please. Your mother will be homeless. Whatever your feelings about me, don't punish her. I felt myself softening, just slightly. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with an email notification. The subject line made my blood run cold. From Stanford's legal department. Official notice of intellectual property claim. I opened it, my hands shaking. Stanford was officially claiming ownership of Nextstream Analytics. They wanted 90% of the company, or they would file a lawsuit. The complaint had been filed by an anonymous Stanford employee, but I recognized the details immediately. Derek Wilson, my old roommate. The one person who knew about my early coding work. The one person who had access to timing and technical details. I looked up from my phone at my father, who was still crying on my couch. Helping my family with their money problems would be relatively simple. Write a check, solve the immediate crisis. But fighting Stanford could destroy everything I had built. This was not just a family problem anymore. This was an existential threat to my entire company, my entire future. I had solved the emotional problem of standing up to my parents only to face a catastrophic legal problem that threatened to take everything away. Monday morning, I sat across from Janet Rodriguez in her law office. She was one of the best intellectual property attorneys in California, with silver streaks in her black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had reviewed Stanford's claim over the weekend. "Collins, I'm going to be honest with you. Their legal case is weak, but the publicity damage could be severe." She pushed a stack of documents across her desk. "They're using your former roommate, Derek Wilson's testimony. He claims he witnessed you developing code in university laboratories, using Stanford computing resources, discussing your ideas with professors who provided guidance." I leaned forward. "I wrote everything in my apartment, on my personal laptop. I never used university resources. I worked alone. I have all my code repositories with timestamps." "Can you prove it?" she asked. "Do you have witnesses, records, anyone who can verify your work location and resources?" I realized the problem immediately. I had worked alone, isolated, cut off from everyone while my family ignored me. My isolation, which had been my strength, was now my weakness. "There was nobody to back up my story," Janet continued. "The media is already picking this up. Tech blogs, business news, mainstream outlets, everyone loves a scandal. College student steals from university to build billion-dollar company. That's a much better story than hardworking kid builds business independently." By Tuesday, my company's valuation had dropped from $15 billion to $12 billion. $3 billion of value gone in 72 hours. Investors were panicking. Some were demanding buyback clauses in their contracts. My phone rang constantly, with venture capital firms asking for emergency meetings. The board of directors was getting nervous. Marcus called me 6 times before I finally answered. "Collins, we need to talk about contingency plans. What if Stanford wins this lawsuit? What if we lose everything?" Wednesday brought Brandon's next escalation. He leaked false information to tech blogs and business media. Multiple outlets published stories citing anonymous family sources who claimed I was mentally unstable, had a history of erratic behavior, had cut off my entire family without explanation. One article quoted my mother, "We're worried about him. He's changed. Money has corrupted him. He won't even help his own parents who are facing financial hardship." Another article quoted Brandon, "My brother has always been brilliant but troubled. He's isolated himself from everyone who cares about him. We're concerned about his decision-making ability." The public opinion turned against me within days. Social media exploded with comments calling me ungrateful, heartless, greedy. Nobody knew the full story of my childhood. The neglect, the favoritism, the years of being invisible. All they saw was a rich kid, refusing to help his struggling parents. The narrative became, ungrateful billionaire son abandons family in their time of need. Thursday morning, we held an emergency board meeting at the office. The 5 board members sat around the conference table looking grim. Marcus spoke first. "Collins, the investors are demanding changes. They want a clear plan to address the Stanford lawsuit, the media backlash, the dropping valuation." He hesitated. "TechCorp's acquisition offer is still on the table. $3.5 billion for the whole company. Maybe we should consider it. Cut our losses, walk away with a win." I felt like the walls were closing in. We sell now. We lose everything we built. This is exactly what they want. Create a crisis, force a fire sale, buy us cheap, and eliminate a competitor. 2 other board members nodded at Marcus's suggestion. 3 out of 5 board members wanted to sell. I barely maintained control with my 57% ownership stake. After the meeting, Marcus pulled me aside. "I'm sorry, Collins. My family comes first. I can't risk everything on principle." "I understand," I told him. "But please trust me a little longer. I have a plan." That afternoon, I hired a private investigator. I needed to know who was behind the coordinated attacks on my company. The investigator was a former FBI agent named Patricia Garrett. She came highly recommended and charged $500 an hour. I didn't care about the cost. Within 24 hours, she called me with her findings. "Collins, you're going to want to sit down for this. Derek Wilson received a $50,000 payment from TechCorp 3 days before he filed the complaint with Stanford. Wire transfer from a TechCorp subsidiary account directly to Derek's personal bank account. Everything clicked into place. This was not multiple separate problems. This was one coordinated attack. TechCorp wanted to acquire my company. They could not compete with us fairly, so they manufactured a crisis. Pay off my old roommate to make false claims, create legal chaos, tank our valuation, force a fire sale, then swoop in and buy us for a fraction of our worth. I called Janet immediately and sent her Patricia's findings. "This is good," Janet said. "We can expose Derek as a paid liar, but it'll take time to investigate properly, build a case, prove the conspiracy. The Stanford lawsuit is moving forward fast. We're talking weeks, maybe months, before we can use this effectively." Friday evening, I returned to my apartment, exhausted and defeated. I unlocked my door and froze. My entire family was inside. Mom, Dad, Brandon, Aunt Susan, Uncle Harold, cousins Rachel, and Michael. 7 people crammed into my tiny studio apartment. "How did you get in?" I demanded. Mom held up a key. "I still had the emergency key you gave me years ago. We needed to talk to you. This is an intervention." They had prepared speeches. Uncle Harold acted as spokesperson. "Collins, we're here because we love you. You've changed. You've become cold, distant. Money has corrupted your values. You've forgotten where you come from." Brandon, with fake tears running down his face, added, "I miss my brother. I want my brother back. Please, let's fix this as a family." Mom was sobbing. "Please help us. We need you. Family is everything. We raised you. We sacrificed for you. We love you." I looked around at all of them. Saw the manipulation, the performance, the desperation. "You want money. Just say it plainly." Aunt Susan put her hand on her heart. "We want you to remember your roots. Help your father save the family home. It's the right thing to do. Morally, ethically, the right thing." I felt years of repressed anger rising in my chest. Where were you when Dad forgot my 25th birthday? When I ate Thanksgiving dinner alone while you all celebrated Brandon? When I graduated yesterday while you were in Paris? Cousin Rachel tried to interject. "You're being selfish. Family helps." I cut her off. "Family? You people are not my family. Family shows up. Family remembers birthdays. Family cares about your achievements, not just when they can profit from them." They left in a huff, offended that I had rejected their intervention. That night, I sat alone in my apartment and felt the full weight of my isolation. Every person in my life was either betraying me or trying to use me. My family wanted money. My competitors wanted my company. The media wanted a villain. I had built a $15 billion empire, and I had never felt more alone. Saturday morning, I found an envelope that had been slipped under my door. Inside were photos of Amanda and Brandon together. Recent photos from the past week. Intimate dinners, walking hand in hand, kissing in a parking lot. Attached was a handwritten note from Amanda. "I'm so sorry. Brandon forced me to approach you. He wanted me to get close, find out business information, report back to him. I couldn't do it. I'm telling you the truth now. He's planning something bigger. Be careful." I stared at the photos and the note. Even Amanda's confession was suspect. Was she telling the truth now? Or was this another layer of manipulation? Sunday evening, Dad showed up alone. Sober this time. Different energy. "Collins, I'm not here to ask for money anymore." He sat down heavily on my couch. "I failed you as a father. I see that clearly now. Brandon was always easier to love because he needed me more. He needed constant validation, constant support. You were brilliant, independent. I convinced myself you didn't need me." Real tears fell down his face. "I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect help. I just wanted you to hear me say it. I'm proud of you. I always was. I was just too stupid and selfish to tell you." For the first time in my life, I heard my father say those words. "I'm proud of you." I felt something crack in my chest. Dad stood up to leave. "Whatever happens with the house, with the business, we'll figure it out. You don't owe us anything. You never did." He walked toward the door and paused. You became a good man despite me, not because of me. That's the hardest truth I've ever had to accept. After he left, I sat in the dark. My phone rang. Marcus, Collins, I'm so sorry. I just got an anonymous email. It has proof. TechCorp has been orchestrating everything. Paying Derek, manipulating media, creating the crisis. But Collins, there's more. They approached Brandon weeks ago, before your graduation, before the announcement. Someone tipped them off about your company early. Brandon has been working with them for 3 weeks. He's been paid $2 million to help them destroy you. Your own brother is the center of the conspiracy. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, processing the information. I thought I was facing multiple separate problems. Family drama, business competition, legal troubles. But it was all connected. One coordinated attack. And Brandon was the architect. My own brother had been paid $2 million to betray me, to destroy everything I had built. Every problem I had tried to solve was part of a larger trap. And I had been walking right into it. I did not sleep Sunday night. I sat at my desk and planned. Fighting defensively was going to lose me everything. I needed to go on offense. Monday morning at 6, I called an emergency meeting with Janet Rodriguez and Patricia Garrett, my private investigator. I need everything you can find on TechCorp, Derek Wilson, and Brandon. Everything. Bank records, emails, phone logs, meeting schedules. I don't care what it costs. Patricia worked fast. By Tuesday afternoon, she delivered a complete dossier. The paper trail was damning. TechCorp's CEO, Raymond Foster, had personally authorized 3 payments. $50,000 to Derek Wilson for filing the false complaint with Stanford. $2 million to Brandon Hartford for insider information and coordinated disruption. Another $75,000 to a public relations firm specializing in reputation destruction. There were emails between Raymond and Brandon detailing their strategy. Subject line from Brandon. Timeline for destabilizing Collins Hartford's company. Another email from Raymond. We need to move fast before other buyers enter the picture. The evidence included screenshots of text messages between Brandon and Derek, coordinating the exact timing of the Stanford lawsuit to maximize damage. Bank records showing the wire transfers. Even proof that TechCorp had hired the PR firm to plant negative stories about me in the media. Patricia had gotten access to everything, using methods I decided not to ask about. This is airtight, Janet said, reviewing the documents. This is corporate espionage, conspiracy, fraud, multiple felonies. We can destroy them. Wednesday morning, I called a press conference. I rented a conference room at a downtown hotel and invited every media outlet that had covered the story. 50 reporters showed up with cameras and microphones. I stood at a podium with a projector screen behind me. Janet and Patricia sat in the front row. I'm here to address the accusations against me and my company. I pressed a button, and the first image appeared on the screen. This is a wire transfer from TechCorp to Derek Wilson. $50,000. Sent 3 days before Derek filed a false complaint, claiming I stole intellectual property from Stanford. The room erupted with noise, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. I continued. This is an email from TechCorp CEO Raymond Foster to my brother Brandon Hartford. I read it aloud. We need Collins destabilized before the next funding round. Use every resource. Make it personal. More images on the screen. Bank records showing Brandon's $2 million payment. Text messages between Brandon and Derek. A detailed timeline of the coordinated attack. My own brother was paid $2 million to destroy me. Not because I wronged him, because I succeeded where he failed, because I built something valuable, and powerful people wanted to take it away. I presented 30 minutes of evidence, documents, communications, financial records. When I finished, the room was silent, then chaos. Reporters shouting questions, cameras everywhere. I gave a final statement. I built Nextstream Analytics alone, using my own resources during years when my family ignored my achievements. These people tried to destroy me through lies, manipulation, and betrayal. But the truth always comes out. I'm filing lawsuits against TechCorp, Raymond Foster, and Derek Wilson. I'm cooperating fully with federal investigators. and I'm here to tell my side of the story. Within 3 hours, the narrative completely flipped. TechCorp's stock price plummeted 12% in a single day. The Securities and Exchange Commission announced an investigation into TechCorp's business practices. Stanford immediately dropped their lawsuit against me and issued a public apology. Derek Wilson was terminated and escorted from campus by security. The media that had vilified me now ran stories about corporate corruption and family betrayal. The headline on TechCrunch read, "Billionaire's brother paid $2 million to destroy his company." Thursday morning, federal agents arrested Brandon at his apartment. Corporate espionage and conspiracy charges. Federal crimes. He was taken to jail in handcuffs, photographers capturing every moment. My parents called me, hysterical. Mom was screaming into the phone. "How could you do this to your brother? You're destroying the family." "He made his choices," I said calmly. "He tried to destroy me for money. He's facing the consequences." "But he's family," she wailed. "You should have protected him." I hung up. Brandon had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and my mother still wanted me to shield him from justice. Friday, I held a company-wide meeting. All 40 employees gathered in the main workspace. I stood on a chair so everyone could see me. "I'm sorry for the chaos and uncertainty you've all experienced. But we survived a coordinated attack from a billion-dollar competitor. That proves we're building something valuable. Something that threatens established players. Something worth fighting for." I announced 3 new major contracts we had secured during the chaos. Major companies had watched how I handled the crisis and been impressed. Our company valuation rebounded to $17 billion, $2 billion higher than before the attacks. Marcus came up to me after the meeting, tears in his eyes. "I doubted you. I was ready to sell. I was wrong. You're exactly the leader this company needs." I shook his hand. "We all have moments of doubt. What matters is that you stayed loyal when it counted." Saturday, Amanda reached out one final time. I agreed to meet her at a neutral coffee shop. She looked exhausted, older somehow. "Collins, I testified to the FBI about everything I knew. I gave them all of Brandon's plans, every conversation I overheard, every manipulation he tried. He's going to prison." I nodded. "Thank you for doing the right thing." She looked down at her coffee cup. "I know this doesn't change what happened between us. I know you'll never forgive me for choosing Brandon. But I wanted you to know that you were always the better man. I was just too foolish to see it. We parted ways with a handshake. No animosity, but no reconciliation either. Just 2 people who had once cared about each other, now strangers." Sunday afternoon, Dad appeared at my door again. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 2 weeks. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow. "Brandon's lawyer says he's looking at 5 to 7 years in federal prison. Corporate espionage carries serious penalties." I stayed silent. Dad collapsed onto my couch. "You were right about everything. I raised him wrong. I enabled his entitlement. I ignored your achievements. I destroyed this family through favoritism." He broke down completely, sobbing with his face in his hands. "I have nothing left. The business is failing. The house is in foreclosure. One son is going to prison. The other son hates me." I watched my father cry and felt complicated emotions I could not name. "I'm not asking for money," he said between sobs. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just need you to know that you succeeded despite me, not because of me. You're a better man than I ever was." I let him cry for a while. Then I spoke quietly. "The house. How much do you need to save it?" He looked up, shocked. $800,000. "But Collins, you don't have to." "I'm not doing this for you," I said. "I'm doing it for the 10-year-old kid who lived in that house and dreamed of being someone. That house was his home, even if the people in it didn't appreciate him. I'll pay off the mortgage. The house goes into a trust in Mom's name only. You get nothing. You'll have to figure out your business problems yourself." Dad started crying again, but now with gratitude mixed into the despair. "Thank you. Thank you so much. This doesn't mean I forgive you," I continued. "This doesn't mean we're a family again. This just means I'm a better person than you raised me to be." Monday morning, I received a call from my legal team. "Collins, TechCorp is collapsing. Federal investigation, stockholder lawsuits, customers leaving. Their CEO, Raymond Foster, has been fired. The board of directors is in chaos. They're selling off assets to cover legal fees. I listened as my lawyer continued. They're offering you first right of refusal on their AI division. Core technology, 200 employees, patents, everything. $4 billion. It would make Nextstream the dominant player in AI analytics overnight. There was a pause. But there's a complication. The acquisition requires detailed documentation of TechCorp's misconduct. You'd need to testify at Brandon's criminal trial. Your testimony could add years to his sentence. I sat in my office chair and stared out the window. Brandon had tried to destroy me. He had been paid $2 million to ruin everything I built. He deserved whatever punishment he got. But he was still my brother. Somewhere under all the jealousy and entitlement was the kid I had grown up with. I had a choice. Business opportunity of a lifetime, or mercy for someone who had shown me none. 6 months later, I stood in a federal courtroom wearing a suit I had purchased specifically for the occasion. The judge sat at the bench. Brandon sat at the defendant's table with his lawyer, wearing an orange jumpsuit. Our eyes met briefly. His face was different, thinner, older, all the arrogance gone. The prosecutor called me to the witness stand. I was sworn in and took my seat. The questioning began. The prosecutor asked me to describe TechCorp's conspiracy in detail. I provided facts, documents, evidence. I explained how they had orchestrated the attacks on my company, how they had paid off Derek Wilson, how they had created the entire crisis to force a fire sale. Then the prosecutor asked the key question. And your brother Brandon Hartford, would you describe him as the primary architect of this scheme? I paused. The courtroom was silent. Brandon was a paid participant, I said carefully. But TechCorp executives created the plan. They identified my brother's jealousy and insecurity as vulnerabilities they could exploit. They approached him with money and promises. He made a terrible choice, but he was manipulated by people with far more power and experience. The defense attorney looked surprised. The prosecutor seemed frustrated. But I had answered truthfully. Brandon had betrayed me, but calling him the mastermind would be a lie. The corporate executives had pulled the strings. When I stepped down from the witness stand, I walked past Brandon. He was crying silently, tears running down his face. He mouthed the words, "Thank you." I nodded once and kept walking. 3 weeks later, the judge delivered Brandon's sentence. 3 years in federal prison with possibility of parole after 18 months. It was less than half what the prosecution had sought. The judge cited my testimony as a mitigating factor. Brandon had been a pawn in a larger corporate scheme. He was guilty, but not the primary villain. My acquisition of TechCorp's AI division was finalized 1 month later. Nextstream Analytics absorbed 200 employees, cutting-edge technology, and valuable patents. Our company valuation jumped to $23 billion. We became the dominant player in AI analytics virtually overnight. I stood in our new headquarters, a proper office building with 5 floors, and looked at the 240 people who now worked for the company I had started in a dorm room. I created a scholarship fund that week. $50 million endowed to Stanford and 10 other universities across the country. The Collins Hartford Scholarship for students from neglected family backgrounds. Students who worked multiple jobs. Students whose families forgot their birthdays. Students who ate dinner alone while their siblings got celebrated. For the kids who nobody saw. I wanted them to know that someone understood. My relationship with my parents remained complicated. I paid off their mortgage and saved the family home, but I maintained strict boundaries. We saw each other 3 or 4 times over those 6 months. Stilted conversations over coffee. Polite distance. No warmth, but no warfare either. Dad found work as a construction manager for another company, a humbler position than he had held before. Mom started seeing a therapist to process her failures as a parent. She wrote me a long letter 6 months after the trial. No requests for money, no manipulation, just accountability. I appreciate the letter, I wrote back. Maybe someday we can rebuild something, but not yet. I visited Brandon in prison once. We sat across from each other in the visiting room with a scratched plexiglass barrier between us. He looked small in his prison uniform. I spent my whole life competing with you, he said quietly. I never realized that you weren't competing with me, You were just living your life. I didn't want to be better than you, I told him. I just wanted to be seen. He nodded slowly. I saw you. That's why I felt threatened. Deep down, I always knew you were special. That's why I had to diminish you, make you smaller. We talked for 2 hours, the first real conversation we had ever had as brothers. When I left, I made him a promise. When you get out, I can't guarantee we'll be close. But I won't abandon you the way Dad abandoned me, he cried. That's more than I deserve. Marcus and my team thrived. The company culture became the best in the tech industry. I implemented profit-sharing programs, giving equity stakes to all employees. Not just executives, but engineers, salespeople, customer support representatives. Everyone who contributed to building something special deserved to share in the success. We won awards for workplace culture. Best place to work. Highest employee satisfaction. People wanted to work for Nextstream not just because of the money, but because they felt valued. I ran into Amanda one final time, in a coffee shop 9 months after everything happened. She was with someone new, a man who made her laugh. She looked genuinely happy. We had a brief, polite conversation. I heard what you did at Brandon's trial, she said. You could have buried him. That was graceful. Everyone deserves a chance at being decent, I replied. She smiled. I'm glad you became successful, Collins. You earned it. I'm glad you found happiness. You deserve that too. We parted as friendly acquaintances, nothing more. The past was finally just the past. I sat in my corner office one evening, 10 months after my graduation, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. My company was worth $23 billion. I employed 240 people. I had proven my worth to everyone who had ever doubted me. But sitting there, I realized something important. I had spent years wanting my family to see me, wanting their approval, their recognition, their love. The graduation announcement was supposed to be my vindication. Look what I built while you ignored me. But the real victory was not proving my worth to them. The real victory was discovering my worth for myself. Success is not measured by the money you accumulate or the empires you construct. It is measured by whether you become bitter or better from your pain. My family neglected me. My brother betrayed me. My girlfriend chose perceived status over genuine connection. I could have let that poison me. Instead, I let it fuel me. Not fuel for revenge, but fuel for growth. Not fuel for destroying others, but fuel for building something meaningful. I built a company worth billions. But that is not the achievement I am most proud of. I am proud that I succeeded without becoming the kind of person who hurt me. I am proud that I helped my parents despite their failures. I am proud that I showed mercy to a brother who showed me none, because in the end, the only person I needed to prove anything to was myself. I receive emails every week now, from students in situations like I was in, working multiple jobs while their families celebrate their siblings, eating dinner alone on important days, feeling invisible. I respond to every single email with detailed, encouraging advice. I schedule monthly video calls with 15 different students, mentoring them through their struggles. I became the person I needed when I was alone. The kid who ate dinner alone at graduation is not alone anymore. He has 240 employees who feel valued every single day. He has 15 mentees who feel seen and understood. He has self-respect that no amount of family approval could have given him. That is the real empire I built. Not the one worth billions of dollars, but the one worth living in. The empire of people who know they matter. The empire of second chances and earned dignity. The empire of becoming better instead of bitter. I still live modestly. I still drive the same old car. I still remember what it felt like to be invisible. And I use that memory not as a wound, but as a compass. It points me toward the people who need to be seen. The people who are working 3 jobs and getting no recognition. The people who are building something special, while everyone around them celebrates mediocrity. Those are my people now. And I make sure they know they are not alone. I ate dinner alone after graduation, while my family took my brother on vacation. My father never knew I was graduating that day, never knew what I had built, never saw what I had become, until it was announced to 5,000 strangers. Turns out, I did not need them there to succeed. But I am grateful they were not, because their absence taught me something their presence never could have. The only approval that truly matters is your own. And once you have that, nothing can take it away from you. So let me ask you something. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have you ever achieved something meaningful that nobody celebrated? Have you ever felt like you had to prove your worth to people who should have seen it all along? If you have, know this. Your worth is not determined by who sees it. Your success is not measured by who applauds it. You are building your empire right now, in the quiet moments when nobody is watching. And one day, that empire will speak for itself. If this story resonated with you, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you experienced family favoritism? How did you handle it? What lessons did you learn? Share your story. Your experience might help someone else who feels alone right now. And if you found value in this story, please consider liking this video. It helps more people find these stories and realize they are not alone in their struggles. Subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more stories about overcoming adversity, finding strength in difficult situations, and building something meaningful from pain. And please share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who feels invisible. Someone who is working hard while others get celebrated. Someone who needs to know that their efforts matter, even if nobody else sees them yet. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for taking the time to understand that success is not about proving anything to anyone except yourself. I hope you build empires worth living in. I hope you become better instead of bitter. I hope you find people who see you, and I hope you become someone who sees others. Take care of yourselves. You matter more than you know.